shall discuss excess burden of taxation. Let us start with that, simple demand and supply costs, and then we will come to the indifference cost. So, it's the when there is demand curve and then supply curve. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply, the quantity and the prices, and so this is equilibrium price. So then I'm giving names E, then PE, and QE, the equilibrium point. So this is the consumption of a consumer when there is no tax, normal situation. And now when a tax is imposed, and say we are imposing a tax on commodity, so you have quantity of X, you are taking, we are imposing a tax on commodity X. So how will you show that in the diagram? The tax is always imposed on the producer, right? So the producer collects the tax from consumer, that is a different thing, but then it is collected by the producer. So the cost curve shifts, not the demand curve. But if we receive a subsidy, okay, then that is reflected on a demand curve. So you give subsidy and the demand curve shifts to right side. But when a tax is imposed, usually the supply curve is affected. Supply curve. No? So now your cost, marginal cost.
Supply will fall or increase. Supply will fall or increase.
You think when a tax is imposed, supply will increase or fall?
Fall.
It will fall, right? So then it will shift to left or right. Aggregate supply curve will shift to right side or left side. Left. So supply curve is now shifting to left side. Say A is prime, and your new equilibrium point is say E1, and then equilibrium quantity is now QE1, and equilibrium price is PE1, right? Yes. So now how much tax is collected? So the tax amount is the difference between two supply curves, the gap between two supply curves, isn't it?
E1.
Huh? So we have to give a name here, right? Isn't it? That is the cost. This is the cost of production. And earlier, the cost of production for this quantity used to be this amount. Now the cost has gone up this much. So the tax amount is this. So you should remember that when a tax is imposed, the vertical gap between two supply curves is the tax amount, right? So we can give say PE0, and so we give names G, and anyway, name is here available. So now what is the tax collected? Tax amount collected?
E1G.
E1G. E1. E1 0.
G.
E1G is the tax amount collected per unit of commodity E1 prime, right? And so what is the consumer welfare loss here? Loss of consumer welfare. Okay, let us write down. So now when a tax, so before tax, we can write down all things here. Okay, so before tax the consumption amount used to be OQE quantity, right? And the price was, so price used to be OPE, right? And now when a tax is imposed, first of all, how much is the tax? Tax is equal to U1G. Now when a tax is imposed, the supply curve was shifted to left side, and now the new consumption amount is, new consumption is OQE prime, right? And price now paid by the consumer is how much? So price paid by the consumer is OPE prime, isn't it? That is the equilibrium price available. So you are paying this much price. And now how much tax is collected by the government? Tax collected amount is equal to PE0 G E1 and PE1, right? Because this is the amount, this is to be, okay, so an ordinary equilibrium price is to be this much, but now the tax amount that is collected is basically per unit is the gap between two supply curves, okay? And then quantity of consumption is this. So anyway, so the tax collected is tax collected is per unit cost is this one. So the quantity multiplied, that's how you get P0E, G, E1 and P, right? Now we are going to discuss, so this is the tax collected, and now we are going to discuss whether the amount of tax that is collected by the government is equal to the loss or the burden borne by the consumers and producers together. Okay. So now, what is the burden that is carried by the consumer and what is the burden carried by the producer? The burden on the consumer is now, burden on consumer is PE star E1 and F. And what is the burden on the producer? Burden on producer is producer is now PE0, PE, F and G. So is there any excess burden? Now let me explain this. So what you can do, no, you can measure the consumer surplus here. Say you can give a name, say A here. It is touching the point A. Suppose when you are consuming OQE quantity, you are paying a price OB, equilibrium price plus OPE, and this was the quantity. So this is the demand curve. Then the consumer surplus that you used to derive when the quantity consumption was this much is the area under the demand curve, at the quantity that you are consuming, minus the price that you are paying for the commodity. And the price that you are paying is OPE and E and QE, right? So the consumer surplus is the triangle EE, A and E. In fact, okay, for understanding of consumer surplus, now we have discussed that when you are buying certain commodities, you are willing to pay certain amount to the seller, but actually you are not paying it. Have you ever come across such situation? This shirt. Okay, you got it for free from Fulana?
No.
They were selling at 750. She asked for discount, so we came around and negotiated.
You got it from Adivasi Mela? Okay. So you got a good discount. Okay. And you got it at 500 rupees.
625.
625. So that is the consumer surplus you felt. Okay. And forget about bargaining. You know, that even if there is a fixed price, okay, you still have consumer surplus. Here we are not saying any kind of bargaining here. It is a fixed price determined in the market, competitive market. Okay. So, but still there is a consumer surplus. Okay. Have you felt newspaper reading? I know you don't read newspaper, right? So, have you ever felt that the amount of money that you pay for newspaper is very less? One day you got the PhD advertisement in Niger, right? And that you saw in newspaper and you are in Niger, so getting 35,000 rupees. So imagine for that day newspaper you might have paid only 5 rupees. Okay, that has given you now so much of lakh of rupees, right? Okay, and or sometimes you get a very good article written by, say, a very big personality. President of India has written one article in newspaper. President of India never writes, right? But Vice President writes in between, and Governor writes, or some very intellectual like P. Sainath writes one article. So then that day you feel, oh, I got so much of knowledge, and so for many things, you get consumer surplus. So okay, so this is the triangle that you derive when you are consuming this much. But now, when the tax is imposed, your consumption amount has declined to O, Q, E bar, and now what is the new consumer surplus? So you are paying the price here, quantity consumption is this one. So the area O, P, E bar, E1 and QE bar is the amount that you are paying. Is the price that you are paying to the seller, and so you are still getting some consumer surplus, but due to reduction in the consumption you have lost this triangle, right? E, F and E1 is the triangle that you have lost. Now similarly, so we can write down that the loss in consumer surplus is equal to E1 and F. Similarly, you can measure the producer surplus. Okay, before taxation, what is the producer surplus? Producer surplus before taxation. The producer surplus will be, how to define producer surplus? The price that you are collecting and the marginal cost. Okay, so the marginal cost, now you can say, stress it below. And now you can measure the cost. What is the total cost of production? When you are producing OQE quantity, what is the cost of production? The area under the marginal cost. Supply curve is nothing but the marginal cost. So area under marginal cost is O, E and QE is, how much do you understand? So this is marginal cost curve. Integration of marginal cost means area under the supply curve. So that is O, E and QE. That is the total cost that you are incurring for producing this quantity. But what is the price that you are getting? The price that you are getting is O, B, and E. The money that you are getting. So what is your surplus? The surplus is the area above the marginal cost curve below the price. That means O, B, E and E triangle is the producer surplus, right? So producer surplus before taxation is this much. Now after taxation, what is the producer surplus? Now the cost of production has gone up, right?
Yes.
So now this is your cost of production. So we give now say O1. Now for producing OQE1 quantity of commodity, your cost of production is now the area, that is O, O1, E1 and QE prime. And now what is the money that you are getting? The money that you are getting is O1, PE1, E1 and G, right? But out of that, so then ideally this should have been the surplus. But then a part of it now has gone as tax, and the tax is now PE0, PE1, E1 and G. Now how much surplus you are getting? So you have to give another name, say H. So this triangle will be now the surplus for the production, right? Because after paying the tax, you paid some amount of surplus. So the area below the equilibrium price, but above the marginal cost of production is your surplus that you are getting. But what is the surplus lost? What is the surplus lost? Yes. You are telling? Yeah, EFG. So now loss in producer surplus is equal to now E, F and G. Clear? So now the total loss is equal to now. So you can combine loss in the consumer surplus, loss in the producer surplus, and that is equal to, so the aggregate loss is now, or you can say that your excess burden of tax is your E, E1 and G triangle, right? So this is amount. Okay, so this is the triangle that of G, E, and E1. Okay, so that means tax amount that the government collects is always less than the burden that society carries. Okay, so in optimal tax, our objective will be how to minimize this. Okay, how we can minimize the excess burden when your objective is a fixed amount of revenue. Okay.